All right, folks, let's continue on with deviance. When we're looking at crime and demographics, one of the types of crimes that we really want to focus in on is hate crimes. Hate crimes have been with us for a good long time, but they certainly are becoming more important as diversity becomes more important in the United States. Hate crimes occur when criminals specifically target victims based on their demographic characteristics, race, gender, sexual identity, ethnicity, things along those lines. The charges typically increase the punishment associated with another crime such as assault, and official statistics likely underreport the true number of hate crimes that actually exist. We also have to take in the types of punishment that the criminal justice system doles out to those that it considers deviant. In the United States, serious crimes are punished by, of course, imprisonment. And in other cultures, types of punishments can include shunning, banishment, corporal punishment, as just a few examples. Acts deemed criminal and their punishments, of course, change over time. During the 1920s and 30s, alcohol was illegal in the United States, but it's legal in most areas in the United States now. In contrast, heroin used to be widely available in the United States. It was sold by bearer until 1910, and the U.S. government even taxed it until it was eventually banned in 1924. Think about heroin today, though. It's one of the things that is creating serious havoc in our population today. The opioid crisis, whether it's coming from the pharmaceutical companies that overprescribed opioids, or it is a response to the unavailability of those opioids, and people are now seeking out an alternative, i.e. heroin. It is creating massive amounts of death across the United States. Some other things that we have to think about: deterrence, retribution, incapacitation, and rehabilitation. These are the four main philosophies of punishment. Each offers a different approach to punishment. Rehabilitation, for instance, suggests that we should include education and training in prisons so that prisoners will be able to contribute to society upon their release. When we put these into practice, many of them overlap. Deterrence is essentially, if you are in a hurry to class and you start to exceed the speed limit, do you ever slow down because you think, I don't want to get a speeding ticket? If so, the potential penalty has deterred you from committing the crime. So what might happen to you if you get caught doing what you're doing is designed to deter you from doing that. Retribution essentially is an example of, have you ever heard the saying, an eye for an eye? That's the premise behind retribution. If you've committed a crime, therefore, society has the right to retaliate against that crime in a certain way. Incapacitation may depend on the severity of the crime committed. If our society imprisoned every person who ever jaywalked, there would be few people left in society. Then again, if the penalty for jaywalking was imprisonment, maybe fewer people would do it. That's part of the logic behind creating sentencing for crimes. And then, of course, rehabilitation has different degrees of success or failure depending on the crime that's committed. However, even though rehabilitation is usually less expensive than incarceration, we tend to see more sentences of incarceration than rehabilitation. Why do you think that is? Are there certain crimes that you think should receive more rehabilitation than incarceration? What about drug use or possession? A current trend in the United States corrections is to transition from government-run prisons to private prisons. Doing so makes incarceration a for-profit endeavor that may undermine the rehabilitation of inmates. The reason that is because it's more lucrative for the companies that are providing private prisons to keep people in prison than it is to release them. So, privatizing prisons might not be what we want to do here. And then, last but not least, we might need to reconsider deviance. There's this new idea of positive deviance that's coming onto the scene, and it's defined as the act that is outside of the norm, but may actually be heroic rather than negative. You got any examples that you can think of that fall into positive deviance? Well, one example could be Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat on the bus when asked, or even a student in class being the one to raise his or her hand and say that a test seemed unfair. If no one else spoke up in class, this student's action might be deviant, but it also could shed light on an issue that needed to be addressed. We have all kinds of actions that people exhibit that are considered positive forms of deviance. The real question is, are you able to be heroic and act deviantly when you see something that is still considered to be part of the norm, but you don't feel is morally just? That's the real question.